Okay, recording. So, I know Diana's here, who's new from last week, but you've looked at the recording. Has anybody got anything to say before we kind of go into session 2 about this element, or anything that has sort of come to their attention or that they'd like to share with each other before we start session 2?
Well, I'm quite happy to speak for a minute. I watched your session. I watched half during the week, and then I watched the other half last night. And yeah, as I know I emailed you, so you know this already. But what you were saying about the deficiencies of the kidney, literally every single one that you named, and I've written it down: the lower back pain, low libido, dark circles in the eyes. And trouble getting out of bed in the morning, hence my laying. That was just me to a T, and it really kind of almost spooked me when you said all that. I was like, oh my God. And I read it out to my husband as well. I said, like, listen to this. And he was like, that's you. And yeah, it was, I found that really, really interesting, and just made me want to understand more. I mean, for me as well, I'm a yoga teacher, and I've only been teaching a year, and I trained in Ashtanga Vinyasa. And although my training course was very good, they didn't really go heavily into the anatomy side of it. And that's what now I'm finding more and more interesting. You know, sort of like when you're in a triangle pose and people say, oh yeah, you're working this muscle. I kind of want to go that more in depth with it and understand how all the different organs work and how it's all linking together. So yeah, I found it incredibly interesting. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you for your input, Diana. So shall I move on? Does anyone else want to just
can I just add one thing, Verity? The twists that we did on our tummy with the sort of the kidney twists, I've did them during the week as well, and I found them absolutely fantastic. I really feel that has helped lift me up, if you like, give me a bit more energy. Those twists, definitely.
When I was doing the initial training in therapeutics, Tina Nance introduced these to me, my teacher in Bali, but she got them from Sarah Powers. And Sarah Powers, if you look, is the Yin Queen, who I've done level 1 with, and hopefully we'll do level 2 this year in September, please. But she lives by them, and I think Sarah's now, she must be coming on 57, 58. She looks like she's 45. If you've ever looked at you know, like we have these people that we adore or that we're inspired by. I'm not just inspired by her body, I'm inspired by her youthfulness, you know, and this is all around, and she does them every day. Not crunches, but whether it be into sphinx, into squeezing into the kidneys, into sometimes toning them more, sometimes holding, so that you're allowing that energy to sort of infuse into the kidneys. So for me, and when I saw her face to face, I couldn't believe her face, you know, because the skin. And I don't know whether I highlighted last week the importance of the skin being part of this element as well, and the hair, and all of it, the thinning of the hair. But really, I suppose, because it's foundational energy, all of that stuff, so the bones, the reproductive system. We did sort of cover libido, did we? Did we talk about libido? Did we talk about libido? We didn't. But the governing of this element is the most fascinating, because if we've lost the foundations of this Jing essence, this not just prenatal energy, but this post-birth, you know, how we're living our lifestyle, then we lose, because the kidneys are connected to the reproductive system, the adrenal glands, the ears, which we didn't talk about, the skeletal structure, to your bones, and your brain. And the research that I've done this week on the brain, even though this is an energy session, so we're going to be working with meridians for this sequence, but the way that we actually, if you're not feeding the brain properly, then nothing is really working, because you're foggy, you know, and so everything is low. So it is a fascinating element, and I feel like I want to study it for years, really. Because also, before we move on, I was very interested because I'm menopausal in the hormones around this. And yes, it is about DH, which I didn't know it was. I looked it up this week, DHEA, which is like a destroying sort of hormone, testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, all relate to the kidney health. Hello. Does anyone understand the importance of that? But if our kidneys are run down, we lose progesterone anyway as we get older. We lose estrogen. So we know that, and I'm not going to make this into a hormone class, but if we are losing that anyway, and we've got kidneys which are just depleted and we're exhausted because of the adrenal relationship with the kidneys, then our hormones don't stand a chance. We're not able to preserve this vital estrogen and progesterone. So we're having to maybe take hormone replacement earlier than maybe we would if we were looking after our kidney health. How important is that? Seriously. So we're running around depleted, which we're going to come on to. Session 2 is energy, and next week we're going to talk about emotions. But I just wanted to highlight to you the importance of all of this reservoir of life, and the reservoir of life is coming through the kidney energy. You want to say anything before I move on?
I think especially this time of year, I mean, I don't know about other people, but I've been drinking quite a bit over the Christmas period. So when we did that session last week, I felt so wiped out afterwards. And I think it's because I've been drinking so much, and obviously that's just not looking after yourself, is it? So it really kind of made me think.
Yeah, and it's a typical thing that we do, Louise, at Christmas. And I know we've got COVID going on, but in terms of the way that we, and maybe even lockdown, a lot of people have maybe taken to drinking more than they normally would for their own personal entertainment, but that's another story. The way that you tire the kidneys, and I wrote down here, we're going to talk about nutrition today as well. If you start taking caffeine, stimulants, refined carbohydrates, sugar, alcohol, then you're stripping. You're just stripping. We know we're stripping anyway with any organ, but remember, this organ feeds the other organs, really, if this isn't stable. And it is to do with the bladder as well, and I was looking at urination. If you're urinating and it's yellow and it's light, but it's very frequent, that's a sign of weak yang energy within the kidneys. And if it's too dark, then it's a sign of closed down, and you're not weeing that much, but it's very, very dark, then that's also a sign, because the bladder and the kidneys are working together. Helen will be much better at this than me. I mean, I'm just a meager yin yoga teacher, but who obviously specialises in the elements, but from an acupuncture and from an Eastern medicine basis, from Chinese medicine, it's critical that we don't strip, like you're saying with the alcohol, that we don't strip, because the kidneys, the problem is that you've got the prenatal chi, which you get from your parents and your ancestors. So some of you may not have a good start anyway. You may have been quite low in chi. But if you then continue a lifestyle which is burnout, constant moving, then you're actually depleting what you didn't have much of anyway. Or you might have had loads and then you're depleting it again. So it really is, because we can affect our chi, we can affect our life through this energetic understanding. And energy now is everything. I really love, I love talking about anatomy, not that much, but I love talking about energy, as you know. I am going to pass you, I'm going to try and share the screen, because I think we need to move on to trace the meridians, because today's objective is that you understand what you're doing with the sequence. So we're going to have a yang-yin sequence, but we're going to understand today, at the end of this session, where the meridians run for these organs. So I'm going to pass us, I'm going to share the screen and pass us to Helen, because why wouldn't we use Helen, who's an acupuncturist, to trace these meridians? So what I've got to do is I've got to pin you, haven't I, Helen?
I think so, yeah. Pin and then
Share
share.
the screen first. Let me share the screen.
We'll talk through the pictures on the screen, which are going to illustrate the channels, the meridians. I'll run through briefly with the screen so that you've got a nice simple picture.
That's not the one I wanted.
And then if Verity then pins me, we'll trace the meridians together as best we can with that image then in our mind from the.
Got some bad news. I can't find it. It's not coming up.
Oh, what we'll do then?
With the meridians.
Straight
Might have to trace them without the visual. I'm so sorry, it's not coming up this morning.
That's all right. We can share the images after the class.
Apologies, guys. I'm really sorry. It's not just creeping up. Something else has come up on there. I'll have to leave it, put it in your notes. I'll spotlight you anyway. Yeah. Pin video. You're on screen now.
Can everyone see me?
Yes.
Right. I'm seeing Verity, so I'm seeing you.
We'll see. Can you all see her? Yeah. Is she in the main screen? Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, Helen.
That's all right. So we'll start with the kidney meridian. So the kidney meridian starts on the sole of the foot. So we're talking about here the main acupuncture channel that an acupuncturist would access. But don't forget that we also have various layers of the channel. So whilst I'm going to be describing a narrow channel to you, when we go into the poses and we work with the meridians, this is to give you an idea of where the meridian runs. So you don't have to be absolutely precise. You can just give yourself then a mental image of which part of the leg, which part of the torso, which part of the back we're trying to access. So kidney channel begins on the sole of the foot. So I'm being very rude and showing you the sole of my foot here. So we're going about a third down in the middle of the foot. And if you kind of tuck your foot around, you kind of make kind of a hole or crevice there. So this is the first point of the kidney meridian. It then goes up the side of the foot to behind the ankle on the inside of the leg, wraps around the ankle, traces up the inside of the leg, so towards the back, comes up the back of that inside of the leg, goes to the knee. So you have, if you fold your knee in, you kind of have the top of the crease there. It then carries on up the inside of the thigh towards the back. And then it actually goes deep inside at the level of the coccyx and runs through the base of the spine. So we talked about lumbar issues, so it runs deep through the spine and then re-emerges at the level of the pubic bone. And it's just about a finger width away from the center line of the body. And it then runs up. I've got both fingers because we have two kidney meridians, obviously one on each side. Runs up center of the torso till it gets to the level of the heart. And then it widens to about 3 finger widths width. And then continues up the torso and ends just below the collarbone. So if you carry on up to the collarbone, this big bone that goes across, you put your fingers in there. This is kidney 27, and actually you can kind of feel, when I press my fingers in there, I can kind of feel into the lungs there. Although this is the kidney channel, this point very much affects the lungs and the way the kidneys and the lungs work together. So just to recap that, just so you can get another mental image, kidney channel goes from the base of the foot, comes on the inside of the leg, around the ankle, comes up the back of the inside of the leg, reaches the knee, comes along the back of the inside of the thigh, goes deep inside the spine, re-emerges the level of the pubic bone, just a finger breadth away from the centre of the body, comes up the torso to the level of the heart, widens to about 2 inches or 3 finger breadths apart, and then continues up to the level of the collarbone. So that's the kidney channel. Hopefully that was fairly clear. I'm not going to go through different points on the channel this week because we're also wanting to look at the bladder channel. So the bladder channel is the yang pair to the yin kidney meridian. And the bladder channel is supposed to be the most external channel of the body, possibly the most yang channel, and you'll understand why when we trace the meridian. So this is all about the head, the back of the legs. So I'm going to try and do this for you. Might be a little bit of wiggling around. So it's also the longest channel in the body, so 67 points. It really takes in the whole body. So this channel starts actually inside the corner of the eye, so where your tear duct is. So obviously don't try needling this one at home. Bladder 1. We're then going to go up on either side, tracing parallel lines, so to the corner of the eyebrow, and then tracing back along the top of the skull, over the head, down to the back of the neck. If you put your head just slightly forward, you'll feel 2 big kind of tendons at the back, so it goes along down that. I'm going to come put my back to you, and then the main bladder channel runs all the way down parallel with the spine, down to the level of the buttocks. And you can feel how wide apart this is I'm just going to put my fingers on my spine, get my thumbs, and I'm just going to pinch the flesh together, and where it kind of stops, there's kind of a ridge. So those are the paravertebral muscles. If I was lying down, you'd kind of see a mountain range going all the way down my back. So this is the bladder channel running parallel with the spine. We then have a second channel that runs parallel to that one, the outer bladder channel, and that's level with where the shoulder blade comes in. So if you move your shoulder blade around, you'll feel that shoulder blade attaching to the body. So if we think of the first line of the bladder channel as being about 1.5 inches out, the second line is about 3 inches out. So parallel lines running down the back. So when we go into our movements, if we're able to feel in the back those 2 lines as we move them, that will mean you're accessing the bladder channel. So the channel continues over the buttocks and then runs down the backs of the legs, so very much in line with the hamstrings, continuing along the hamstrings at the backs of the legs, and then just coming round to the outside edge of the foot, behind the ankle, and then along the edge of the foot, finishing at the corner of the little toe. So that's a really long channel, and I'm just going to run through it quickly again so you get the feeling of it going right from the head, over the back, down the legs, finishing on the little toe. So starting inner canthus, inside of the eyeball, in parallel lines, the corner of the eyebrows, over the top of the head, along the back of the neck, all the way down the back, over the buttocks, and then down in line effectively with the hamstrings, Finally coming down the outside of the leg, behind the ankle, and the outside, and tracing on the outside of the foot, and finishing on the little toe. So a really long channel, a yang channel, paired with the kidney channel that we traced on the inside of the leg. So hopefully we'll be able to access those as we go through the moves in our sequence today. Obviously they're very narrow for acupuncturists, but as I said, we think about the channels that associate with these, the sinew channels, the muscle channels, are slightly wider, so you don't need to pin your thoughts exactly on that very narrow strip. It's these areas of tissue that we're trying to access.
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to the sequence, I'd very much like you to just explain, because there's a few people who are new to this course, if you could just explain what a meridian is. That would be really, I think, really useful also to refresh us as we move into our sequence in a minute.
Cool.
Mind.
So my lovely assistant, we call her Meridian Mel here. I hope you can see her. I might come a little bit closer actually. So in Chinese medicine, we have 12 main meridians that run over the body that you will see in these classic photos. So we've talked about the bladder channel on the back, the kidney channel. This isn't the end of the story of the meridians. So I suppose the question is, what are meridians? What's running in the meridians? So the meridians transport primarily qi and blood through the body to provide nourishment, to provide protection, and to move the different types of energy in the body. So the kidney channel is full of qi that associates with the type of energy associated with the kidneys. What's qi? That's a $1,000 question. So lots of books have been written about what is qi, and I'll sit back on my chair and give you a couple of quotes in a moment. But effectively, when we're thinking about the body, qi is effectively bioelectric energy. So it's the energy produced in the cells, if you like, moving through the body in pathways. And the Chinese kind of alluded to qi as moving as water, if you like. So obviously they did a lot of drainage and a lot of work with the land. And they saw the body as a kind of a country, as land. And that the qi, the pathways of the qi, moved in the way that watercourses would over the body. So they moved through the easiest pathways, through muscle, through the flesh, to be able to condense this qi and move it in the most easy way possible for the body, for these organizing principles in the body, to be able to move the energy around. So I'm just going to quote from a couple of books, because as I said, qi is you can look at it in a very esoteric manner, which is obviously interesting and fascinating, and I love that. But just to try and understand from today's perspective and to try and get what we can, and how do we move with qi? How do we work with qi? We can look at qi in a number of ways. And I'm quoting here from a very ancient book, Simple Question. It says, a human being results from the qi of heaven and earth. The union of qi of heaven and earth is called human being. So if we like, qi is the interaction between heaven, what we can think, what we're given by our parents, DNA, and earth, this physical substance. It's the thing that moves within us, that is kind of the guiding principle, if you like, from whatever it is that moves the heavens, that moves all life, moving within us. We can say qi is an energy that manifests simultaneously on the physical and the mental and spiritual level. And I think that's quite a nice quote as well. So it is physical. We are physical bodies, but let's not forget that we maybe have another dimension to us, this spiritual, this mental level as well. Was that enough summed up in 2 minutes?
Yeah, thank you very much. There's so much. We are doing weekend retreats at the Yoga Factory here, hopefully. So you'll go into more of that on more of a learning.
We can be more esoteric then.
Because you can't do it all in a little short course. But yeah, thank you so much.
Can I ask a question, please? Is that allowed? So is it different to the nadis that you learn about and the chakra system within yoga? Is it different, or is it similar but different?
I don't know too much about chakras and nadis. I think they have different pathways, but I think the principle is the same. I think we can talk about kind of allude to yin energy and yang energy, as far as I understand. So yin energy is kind of organizing fields of energy, whereas meridians are more electrical yang type movement of energy.
Thank you.
So I'd like to continue. Thank you so much for your input, as always, Helen. If you want to explore that more, then obviously there's those opportunities in the coming months this year, hopefully. But I want to go into the sequence. One thing I do want to say is when we look at energy, we look at different forms, to take it back into simple terms, of deficient, stagnant or excessive. And they're all very, very prevalent in when an acupuncturist or even a shiatsu practitioner or a massage therapist who knows about energy will kind of like maybe hopefully have an understanding of what happens is we become imbalanced. And this is what we're doing with this. So I'm translating it into a more yin kind of yogic sequence that allows us to use our yoga in a much more therapeutic and healing way. So if you like, we're going to call it healing yoga, because it isn't just about I know where the bladder meridian is now. I'm going to use this pose to know that I can stimulate energy through my body, which in turn gives me greater optimum health and vitality. I'm going to work with that intention. Without the intention, you're just in a pose. What are you doing in the pose? You're feeling a stretch, but you're not actually magnifying the mental with the energetic and the physical experience. Does that make sense? So it's just a pose. And for many years, you know, like Diana was talking about her first year, and my first 3 or 4 years were Ashtanga based. So, you know, we do come into the body in a physical way. But let's start to work with the fact that there's energy that moves. And if it stops moving, then sadly we become quite imbalanced and we can become sick. So I want you with this sequence to put all of your efforts into working with how you can feel. You can feel energy. It tingles in your fingertips. It tingles in your toes. It tingles in your whole body. But are you receiving? Are you feeling into that? So let's go. Let's come onto your feet. Take the feet sort of hip width apart. I think just because we've had half an hour of intellect, which has been, I think, amazingly interesting if you've got a curious mind, but let's come into the body. I want you to bend the knees just slightly. So you're not bending, there's just a micro bend in the knees. And I want you to come to the junction. Diana was talking about nadis and chakras, which is different. It's all energy, it just moves in circles. But the lower dantian, just below the navel. So if you find the navel and the pubic bone, just put your hands on the intersection of all of the meridians. It's a very, very powerful area. Just above the pubic bone, just below the navel. Close the eyes for a minute because I just want us to come into our feet and our body. Close the mouth if you can, and just allow the breath to start to move in and out through the nostrils. Micro bend in the back of the knees so you're not locked. You want an energetic movement through the body. Imagine gathering all the energy into the area of the lower dantian or the dantian. And I'd like you now to bend so that you have a real relationship with the feet and the kidney one energy that Helen so beautifully described. It sits in the middle of the sole of the foot. And I'd like you to imagine that you're bringing in kidney energy from the feet up into the lower dantian. So I take this chi from the earth at the moment through my kidney access point at the bottom of the sole of my foot, in the middle. Imagine as you breathe it in that it comes up the legs into the lower dantian, into the belly. And as you breathe out, you bring that down back into the earth, but very grounded in your feet. So you're not losing any vital essence, which in Chinese medicine is called Jing, J-I-N-G. Sink even further into kidney one in the soles of your feet. Bend your knees if you have to access that. Remember, it wraps around the ankle and comes up into the calf and up into the groin and up even further either side of the navel into the collarbone. Before we move, I'd like you to check in with the quality of your breath. Drop any tension out of your jaw and release the tongue to the lower palate. Allow the breath to be smooth, like the water that it is, as it ripples in and out of your nose. As we breathe in, it's soft, and as we breathe out, it's releasing. And then just gently return your focus, soft focus, to opening the eyes and just allow the arms to fall by the side of the body. So we're just going to do a little bit of sort of yang movement. I'd like Helen, maybe next week she can do a little water sequence for us as well, but I'd like to just bend the knees, take it a bit wide if you can, and we're just going to ignite a little bit of kidney energy by just allowing the arms to sort of swing like a pendulum from side to side. Keep it slow. There's a few of you that seem to be going quite fast. Slow down. We want to ignite the energy by toning that yang. Remember the kidney, Helen explained in session 1, has a yang and a yin energy quality to it. So you could maybe get more pronounced, a little bit stronger. But we're coming in slowly like we do with yin. Maybe the head can move and the sides of the body move. So come into the right. So you're consciously working, coming into the right kidney as you swivel to the right, coming into the left kidney as you swivel to the left. Exhaling as you twist, inhaling as you come back. See if you can get the breath in the same, in and out. Just take a couple more. You know, I said in the beginning, are we conscious of what we're doing or are we just doing it? Imagine those ears, and it does affect your hearing. A lot of people with imbalances get tinnitus, that ringing in the ears. And then just let the arms come back. Bend the knees slightly more to get into kidney 1. If you're locked and you're like a militant officer, then you're going to lock energy. So free the energy. So we're going to do it sort of qigong, but it's not really. I'll leave that to Helen for next week. I'm just sort of dumped in my own little version of it. We're going to trace the meridians. So if you just want to watch one round, and a lot of you know I've had some problems with my left shoulder, so it decided to freeze on me, which isn't interesting. So you'll see that my left arm doesn't go very high at the moment. So your left arm can go high. So we lift the arms up and we fall forward into the bladder channel. You then trace the meridians of the bladder. Remember, it comes from the baby toe up. Come into the kidneys and give them a little kind of like rub as you breathe in. Fold forward again, exhaling. Kidney 1, so just put your finger into the middle of the sole of the foot and then trace up all the way, inhaling through the seam of the pants, through the groin, either side of the navel, into the K27, the collarbone, breathe in. And then just relax, arms down. Inhale up again, we're going to do it a few times. Fold forward, exhale fully all the way down. Trace the meridians at the back of the legs, bladder. As you inhale up, hands come to the kidneys. Rub the kidneys at the end of the inhale, lift the head. Exhale, fold forward, down the bladder channel, feel the backs of the legs. Into the baby toe. Swap over, hold on, and then to the middle of the sole of the foot. Trace up the kidneys, inhaling. K27, the collarbone. And release the arms, breathe out. See if you can do that with the breath and movement. So inhale up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, trace up, bladder. Hold the kidneys, hold the inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, trace the kidney meridian, inner side of the thighs, inner groin. Lift the head. Draw up to the collarbone with the fingertips. Hold on. Hold the inhalation. And release. Do 2 in your own time. I'll do the rhythm with you. Close the eyes, take a few breaths, bend into your knees. Once you've finished your round, take your stance a little bit wider. This is a horse stance, coming to the kidney energy, so bending. You can come into bladder energy a little bit here with the baby toes, baby toe bladder. Think about the groin, think about the seam of the kidneys, and then we're going to have a little kidney twist. So if we twist the left shoulder forward, bend down into the kidneys so you get right into these inner seams as you exhale. Inhale back up, kidney, K27, collarbone, drop it down. Exhale, forward, twist into stretching the opposite kidney. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. X. One more time. Come to stand. Get your breath. Gather your chi. Put the hands onto the lower dantian. Gather the energy back into the intersection. Bend your knees slightly, you see. Try not to lock them.